In my role as director at Tapjoy, I've helped over 120 mobile apps launch on iOS and Android. And in that time, I have seen the same mistakes made over and over again. It's really frustrating. So I wanted to put a presentation together to give to designers to just put in the back of your head. So when you guys are getting ready to put your next game out, these are just little things that if you put them in as you're going along, it's going to save you a lot of headaches once you launch. So the 5 things that I want to talk about are metrics, new user tutorial, monetization, some administrative items, and acquiring users. Now these are all fairly important things, and most people think that they have them all covered, but quite often there are little details in the process that you happen to forget. So we'll start off with metrics. And I've had some people say, well, metrics, well, what is that? What am I measuring, the different stuff in there? If you don't know what metrics are, honestly, turn to the people to your right and left and ask if their company is hiring. Because you're going to really make a terrible game if you don't know how to measure and understand what your users are doing. Without those metrics, you really can't have a good baseline, a good understanding of how healthy your app is, how well you're doing. Are you selling enough? Could you be selling more? Even if you're not sure what to track, just start off with some basics. Just look at a few things that you think are important and put those hooks in there to be able to measure them and track them as you go along. As you update your app, as you get more experience, as you see what the users are doing and what they're not doing, you'll have a better idea of what you should be looking at. But as long as you start off with a few basics, that'll get you going and give you somewhere to start from. For most games, for most engines, adding the metrics hooks are going to require a code update. Now on iOS, anytime you put new code into your app, you're going to need to update it. On Android, it's a much faster process. You can really just add the new code, put the new thing up there, and update and iterate very quickly on Android. But on iOS, it's really a longer process. And right now, as everyone is getting ready to update to OS 6, those approval times are fairly long. For a new app, right now, it's 21 days to get approved, if not more. For a review, for a resubmission, that can be anywhere from 5 to 15 days. So having to iterate quickly on iOS is really something you can't do right now. And as we get into the holidays, that's going to become even more difficult as everyone tries to get their updates and their pushes in for the big holiday season. If you're not sure what type of metrics you're working with, or you don't have a good infrastructure in place, find a service provider. There's some really great folks out there that have excellent metrics tools. People like Contagion, Flurry, Claritix, these are all really good providers, and they have turnkey solutions for you, so you can plug them in and you're ready to go. And all of these service providers, they'll be able to help you figure out what metrics you're looking for. So if you're not sure what you're tracking, you have a great game and a great design, and you have a few ideas on what you should be tracking, work with your service providers to get a more extensive list. Now I put a few basics here together just to, again, give you guys some place to start with if you're not sure. So first thing is DAU. How many users are coming in and actively playing your game? A subset of that is the sessions. So understanding of those DAUs, how many sessions is each user doing? And again, that gives you an idea of, are they coming in once, are they coming in 5 times? And that session number will vary based on the type of app that you have. If you have something like Draw Something or Song Pop, where you have a lot of small interactions, then you should see 5 or 6 sessions per user a day. If you're a more combative game where it's one big session and maybe the user's playing for an hour, maybe you're only going to see 1 or 2 sessions. But really, the DAUs, that's going to vary based on your app. You want to look at how many new users are coming into the game and make sure that you're growing. Obviously, it's a very important number. Probably more important than that is the retention of the users that you have. So you want to look at the 24-hour, 2nd day, 7th day, and 30-day re-engagement of your users. So you can download a ton of users, but if they never come back to your app, then they're wasted. And understanding that re-engagement, you can try to fix things. If they're not coming back, what can you do to bring them back? What kind of design tools can you use to re-engage them? What kind of messaging or notifications can you push out to bring those users back in? Next is the new user funnel. So once you have a user into your app and they've installed it, are they opening it? Are they starting the tutorial? Are they finishing the tutorial? These are all very important things, and you can look at your metrics and see where is your drop-off happening. And you may not realize that you have a bug or you have an issue somewhere in that new user funnel that's causing users to drop off. And again, you're using all of these potential customers that you have coming in. Other things you can look at is average game session length, how long are they staying for? And as a designer, you should have an idea in your head of what that healthy length is. Your average revenue per daily active user and your average revenue per paying user varies wildly based on the type of app, the genre that you're in. But again, you should have a basic understanding, a basic idea of what you're shooting for. The percentage of your users monetizing. What items are they buying in your game? What are they interacting with? What do they want? And that really is an important thing to be looking at to judge what should you be designing, what should you be putting out next down the road. And then IAP, when they're doing transactions with Google, when they're doing transactions with iTunes, what size packages are they buying? How much currency are they getting? And as you go along, you're going to know what's more important for your game. These are a great place to start, but there's going to be things that are very important to you based on the game and on the genre that you're in. And you'll understand what those KPIs are, those key performance indicators, as you grow. Up next is the new user tutorial. And I really think that this is one of the most important parts of a game. You can have a really incredible game, super detailed. It could be the game that people play for years on end. They're totally addicted to it. But if they don't understand how to get into the game, they don't understand how to play it, they're going to bounce right off it, you're going to lose that user, and it's going to be very hard to get them back if you ever are able to. So that new user tutorial, that early experience is critically important. You want to never assume that the user is going to know what to do. You guys are all head down in the game. You know exactly how to play the game. You know all of the different components and aspects of it. It's second nature to you. A new user doesn't. Someone coming off the street doesn't. And so you need to be very careful that you take their hand and you guide them into the game. Use clear directions. Again, just show them what you want them to do. Let them really understand what your game is and how to play it. And also get them playing as soon as you can. One thing users really don't like is being put on rails for 10, 15 minutes of a tutorial and never really getting to play the game. It gets boring, they can't make any choices, particularly if they can't click anywhere but where you're allowing them. It gets to be very tedious, and again, you're going to lose them because they're bored, because they're not actually playing their game, they're watching your tutorial. Another thing that some folks do, which I think is helpful, is give the user access to the tutorial later on. So a user may go through and start playing with the tutorial and lose interest in it and skip out of it, but then they might want to go back later on and find out about things that they didn't understand that they thought they knew. So if you give them a link in the help screen, just a replay tutorial, look at tutorial, it's fairly simple to do, and it can help you retain a user that's engaged. Somebody that thinks they like the game, they're not sure, they're lost. If you let them go through that tutorial again, it can really hook them. Now, if you don't have time to make an extensive tutorial, if you can't really dig in there and do a very detailed, in-depth tutorial, just put up some static screens, just something simple to show the user how to get into the game and get started. This is something that any designer can do. It's a fairly, you just take a static image, do some drawing on top of it, and you're ready to go. And it'll save you a lot of headaches. Until you have time to do a more extensive tutorial, just putting some static screens in there can get the user started. Now, if you do have time, then you want to do a little bit more of an intensive tutorial. And you want to make sure that you're giving the user very clear directions. So you want to highlight the areas that you want them to look at. Don't just have a whole screen there and expect them to know where to click. Again, as a new user, they don't know what they're doing, so you need to show them. So I'm a big fan of highlighting the areas that you want them to interact with, gray out the areas that don't matter now. Use big arrows, show them here, this is what you should be looking at. Flashing, pulsing arrows are great. And then a little bit of information, don't overload them, but give them some idea of what it is that they're doing here and how this expands their gameplay. So again, if you're able to spend a little bit more time and do a more detailed walkthrough of the tutorial, take the user by the hand. Now, I said you don't want to just put them on rails and make them watch a movie for 15 minutes. I believe that's very true. But you do want to take them early on and not let them get lost. So 30 seconds, I think, is a fairly good amount of time if you, depending on how detailed and rich your game is. But if you can take them for 30 seconds, say click here, click here, click here, click here, and explain what the game is, show off the core loop of your game and get them started. And then beyond there, let them get out into your game. And a really good feature is to use things like quests or tasks to keep the user moving forward, let them understand what it is they should be doing, but they're getting into the game, they're playing and they're interacting with it, and it's just a better experience for them. What most developers have seen that I've worked with is you have about 30 seconds to hook the user. They've gone in, they've downloaded your app, they want to see what it is. So during that time, you really want to show off the important part, show off your core loop. You're not going to be able to show them your entire game. And if you try, you're going to get longer and longer and longer in that tutorial and risk boring them and losing them. But take that core loop, show it off really well, and then get them into the game and playing. Probably no more than 5 minutes to really have them into the game playing it. And a good benchmark number is to have a goal of about 70% of your users that start the tutorial finish it. So you'll have a lot of drop off from the people that start installing the game and opening it. There's a lot of reasons that you lose them along the way. But once you have them in that tutorial, the majority of them should get through the tutorial. And if you're seeing a big drop off, there's a reason. There's something in that flow that's causing them to either get stuck, bored, lost, whatever. Figure out, again, going back to the metrics, what point in that flow are they dropping off, and fix it. Sure.
What do you feel about when you sensing whether it's a new user or not, and just by default add a one level, give a quick basic tutorial, not give them the choice one way or another? Is that a bad way to go, or do you always want to give a choice if you know they're a new user?
I think you always give them the option to skip out to bail on the tutorial. And again, it's nice if you have the show tutorial later to let them go back in. Users think, oh, I know all about this stuff. I've played 100 of these games. I'm not going to bother with this. So they'll skip the tutorial and start playing, but then they'll get lost. So it's nice to be able to go back to the tutorial later. I'm in favor of putting a skip in there. At this point, most users of mobile games have played a lot of them, and particularly when they've found a genre that they like, there's usually not a lot of difference in the early part of the game for those different genres, so they just kind of get in there and start playing. So up next we'll talk about monetization. Not a heck of a lot to talk about here. The important thing to remember is that any monetization you implement into your game is going to be some type of code or SDK that you're going to be entering into the app. So you have to have this in there before you do your submission for Apple. Again, Android, you have a little bit more flexibility and you can update later on if you want. But if your app happens to be a hit, if you happen to hit the lottery and you have that magic sauce that everybody wants your game and absolutely wants to play it, and you're getting hundreds of thousands of downloads, you will not have time to implement anything new. You're going to be freaking out, your servers are going to be on fire, your boss is going to be popping champagne, it's going to be awesome, but you're not going to have time to implement new things. So you want to have this stuff in there and ready to go from launch. Even if you're not using it, most of these payment systems you can deactivate it or you can disable it server side, so that you have the system in there at launch. It's there if you need it, and when you're ready to turn it on, you can, but it's not a code update. You're just disabled at server side. Personally, I don't see a reason for that. I think if you have a system in there that you want users to pay you for, let them do it from day one. Don't wait on it. Another thing to think about is ad units. So beyond just the in-app purchases, are you going to have banners? Are you going to have videos, more app buttons? Having all of this in ahead of time, honestly, to do the code and the placement of this should take one engineer 4 or 5 hours. And it's done, it's in there. And if you do it a month before you launch, you don't have to think about it again. The game launches and you're able to just collect revenue for it, and your boss again is happy because you're making money. Pick a few places where these are not going to interrupt gameplay, they're not going to affect the user experience. Put it on inventory screens, loading screens, victory pages, all these places where you're not interrupting the gameplay, but you are getting traffic through there, so the banners and the featured ads will earn you revenue. And again, it's just something to think about ahead of time. Once you put it in there, you don't have to think about it again later. So up next, I want to talk about some administrative things. And these are things that people just tend to not think about until after launch, and then you're racing and scrambling to get them in there. So first off, you want to have all of your legal links in there. So you want to make sure that you have your terms of service and your privacy policy links in your app. Incredibly boring, but it's something that you need to do, and it can be a headache for you later on if you haven't done it and there's some kind of issue pops up and you're trying to get it in there retroactively. Again, this is a easy thing to put in a month before you launch. You just find a little place somewhere on the settings page or in the credits, just somewhere in there that you can kind of hide this, and then you're good to go. You don't have to worry about it. This is not design. Don't think about it. Don't try to fix it or make it pretty or cool or improve on it. Put the legal text in there and forget about it. And if you don't know what you need, if you're not sure what the language is that you want to put in there, talk with some of the partners that you have, either monetization platforms, metrics platforms. Folks like myself, we've worked with a lot of folks on this, and we can point you in the right direction of where you can download a basic set of terms of service, or point you in the direction of a good lawyer that can write this stuff up for you in no time for not a heck of a lot of money, and again, you're good to go. Another thing is customer service. This is one of those things that really sneaks up and bites you in the butt. If you don't want your users emailing your personal email at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night, give them somewhere else to email. If you think that for whatever reason, your email is hidden and they'll never find it, you're wrong. They will. They'll post it on message boards. Your users are bastards and they hate you. And they want to do everything they can to annoy you. And once your email gets on that message board, your life is pain. And you can tell this is something you've experienced personally. I hate when you put out an update or you change something that they don't like, oh man, that's annoying. So give your users a clear way to get help. If you give them an email, just give them again, in that options page, in that settings page, give them a link that allows them to message your customer service. This can help you by preventing them posting bad reviews of you. Bad reviews kill you. 1 star, this game stinks, it doesn't work, I hate it. If you give them a way to message you directly as opposed to posting it up on Apple, they probably will anyways, again, because your users hate you. But if you can prevent that, it really makes your life better, it makes your game high, your review higher, and that's a good thing. Creating a simple message board, or nowadays just putting up a Facebook fan page for your app, it gives your users somewhere to go. It lets you direct them to someplace, and it lets you put out messaging. It really allows you to build a community around your app. Now again, if you're just starting out, you may think that you don't need a community up front, but as your app grows, and again, if it explodes, if you've got this place already ready to go, if you've got users funneled in there, it allows you to re-engage them, it allows them to like your page, and it really creates a connection between you and your users. And it gives them somewhere to go and somewhere to focus their aggression. And I suggest having someone moderate it and remove all the horrible posts that if you don't give your users a way to contact customer service, they'll find a way to contact you. So again, just customer service at yourcompany.com. It'll save you a lot of headaches. And then having the links directly in the app so that they can get there without having to search for it, it makes it easier. And honestly, you're going to get a lot of great feedback from your users. They're going to tell you what's wrong, they're going to tell you what bugs you have, and it really can be a good channel for you to help improve things. And it definitely, when you're responsive to your users, they love it. Users hate to think that they're just sending messages into a black box and it never gets responded to, or no one cares. When they know that you're responsive to them, when they know that you care about them as much as they care about your game. It really helps foster that community. Another thing to think about ahead of time is social channels. So again, taking advantage of Facebook, Twitter, Google+, all of these social networks, they offer you APIs and SDKs that you can plug into your app, and that will allow you to let your users be your advocates. They let you spread your virality and hopefully bring in more users. Again, these are all code-based things, so it's something that you have to have in ahead of time. You don't want to be retrofitting it. Social network hooks done right probably take longer than monetization and ads and those things. These might take you a couple of days to get in there, but it really does allow your users to be your best advocates. Try to use the icons of the network. Your users know what Google+ is, they know what Facebook is. Don't try to be fancy with it, just put the icon up there, and if they're interested, they'll click on it. And a nice thing on the mobile games, you can give your users rewards in the game. You can give them coins and tokens and gold or whatever for signing up on these networks and again, spreading and being viral for you. So the last thing is acquiring users. There are a lot of choices out there for you to try to acquire users. And it can be very easy to get lost in there. There's over 500,000 apps out there right now. All of them want your users and they don't want you to get them. And so they're doing everything that they can to acquire your user. So it's important for you to go out and get them first. So pick what system works best for you. And so there's a lot of different channels that you can choose from. We've gone through and got some information for us. Got some numbers here on what you could expect from these different channels. So on iTunes and on Google Play, if you get featured placement, that's great. Again, it's winning the lottery. You're going to get a ton of users through there. For most of these featured placements, they're going to be up there for a week. And over that week, you can expect to get 100,000 plus a day if you're a free app, 15 to 30,000 if you're a paid app. For some of the second tier, like on iTunes, they have new and noteworthy. If you're there, that's probably 10 to 15,000 a day for a free app. And again, you're there for a week, so you're going to get quite a good number of free users from there, and then that's going to help your chart placement, which will bring in a lot more users. So make friends with the guys at Apple, make friends with the folks at Google. Whatever you can do to get that featured placement, it's critically important for you. There is no real secret sauce to it. There's no bribing, there's no paying for it. It's really, in this case, people say it all the time, but it's really about making a good app. They're looking for apps that make their platform look good, that use their tools, that are stable. Stability is probably one of the most important things. And if you fill all of those categories and you're able to get in front of the review boards, chances are you'll get at least some level of placement because they are looking for good apps to show off and to keep their users happy. Paid acquisition services like Tapjoy, it's a pay per install. And it's really up to you as the developer as to what your acquisition costs, what you can afford. You want to look at, what is ROI positive for you as a developer, and what can you afford to buy. In a bid system, you have a lot of flexibility in how much you're spending. You might be spending $2, you can spend as little as 10 cents. That price really dictates how many users you're going to get. The higher bid price you make, it doesn't affect the quality of the user. They're all good game playing users. These are people that are playing other games and are interested in earning currency in the games that they're playing, so they're going to check out your app. So these are all people that like playing games. So the quality is the same across the board. The bid is really going to affect how many users you're getting. 10 cents, you can expect maybe up to 5,000 a day on iOS and Android. If you go $1 or more, then you're looking at 30,000 plus. Up next is free app of a day type promotions. So destination sites and apps that will feature your app for a day and then usually bump you down to kind of a second tier for the remainder of the week. These are really good services, particularly for paid apps that want to flip over to free for a short period to drive a bunch of users in. We see a lot of folks that do it, and it, for some people it works incredibly well. It's explosive growth for them. The issue with this is that you don't know what the volume is going to be, depending on when you get placed, depending on what else is launching that week. It can be really kind of hit or miss. I've seen 30 to 50,000 app installs over that free promotional period, but again, it really varies based on the service and on when you get promoted. And again, the cost of that varies based on the platform. So anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000. App-to-app cross promotion. This is great if you have some friends that have made an app and you want to cross promote with them. This is free. It's a beautiful thing. The volume you're going to get varies based on where that other app is placing you in their flow. If they give you a great, front page promotion, as soon as the user goes in, you're going to see a lot of users go through. If you're kind of hidden, then not so much. And then review sites. Getting your app reviewed by folks like Inside Network or Macworld or all these other publications out there. I've found that these tend to not drive a ton of traffic for you, but it's really good visibility for the company. If you're looking to get your name out there more, getting some really good reviews can be very helpful for that. And that's about all the time that I have here. So just recapping the points we talked about here. You want to make sure that you have your metrics in there ahead of time, have a baseline in place before you launch, and then review those metrics and add hooks as needed. New user tutorial, make sure that you give direction to user. Don't just toss them in there and expect them to find it. Keep it clear and make it simple. Monetization, make sure that you have them in there. You have your offer walls, make sure you have your banners in there from the beginning. Don't try to retroactively add them later because it's just going to be a hassle. For administrative, make sure that your privacy policy and TOS are in the app and linked there, and make sure that you have customer service links for your users. It's going to save you a lot of pain. And then choose the acquisition channel that's right for you. Look at the volume you want to get, the money that you can spend, and set that up ahead of time before launch. Have your expectations in place. Have an understanding of how much you're going to spend. Thank you very much. We have time for a couple of questions if folks have anything they want to go over.
As an independent developer,
Yes.
My funds are not, so some of the metrics and some of the things that you talked about, how would I implement those without the funds?
Most metrics providers give you a free level of service. I know Contagion and Flurry both have free metrics that you can take advantage of. They start to charge when you look at some of the advanced features. So if you want to talk about measuring user acquisition channels, user pay rates, those type of important features, that's where they tend to charge you. But just the basic set of features are usually free.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Are there games that don't require privacy policies or terms of service?
What is required and not required is kind of a gray area. I personally think it's just a good practice to put it in there, and then you have it, and your users can refer to it, and it's something that you don't have to think about later. A lot of the concerns I have are what's going to be a problem 2 months from now when your millions of users are pouring through your app and you're trying to fix issues and put out new gameplay. You don't want to think about your terms of service. You don't want to think about the privacy policy. I don't know who's required to have what. That's definitely a question for a lawyer. All I know is just put it in there. Anything else? Yes.